If you have a credit card, or better yet, you're only starting to consider getting one, this is the video for you because in this video we're going to cover everything that you need to know about how to use it so that you never have to pay a single cent in interest to the bank. I am going to show right here down below all of the chapters in this video so you can just jump to the ones that you're interested in. But as you can see, we're going to learn everything from the minimum payment to how the interest is calculated to the payment due date and everything in between. But I think it is important to start with the very basics of what is a credit card. And a credit card has three main characteristics. Number one, it is a line of credit that a bank or a financial institution can give to you and that you would use through a plastic or sometimes metal card. Of course, nowadays, sometimes these banks also issue a virtual card, so you can just shop online with the 16 digits or 15 digits from the card without actually having a physical card. The second characteristic, and maybe more important, is that this line of credit is a revolving credit, meaning that it is not just a one-off credit that you have, similar to what you would have on a mortgage or a credit to buy a car, things like that. This is a credit that renews and replenishes itself every single time that you pay whatever you owned before. So let's say that you have initially a $10,000 line of credit. If you use $2,000, you have $8,000 remaining. But as soon as you pay those $2,000, you have the full $10,000 line of credit available again. So this means that it is revolving. The third characteristic of a credit card is that you have to pay whatever you used during an entire month after a specific set of dates. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but essentially all of your charges from an entire month would be grouped together and you have to pay that at the end of the month. Let's talk about this line of credit that I briefly mentioned a minute ago. Because normally a credit card would have a specific line of credit. Like in the example that I gave before, you would have a $10,000 line of credit. This credit line would usually depend on your income, on what income you can actually prove to the bank, but also, of course, your credit history. So the better your credit history and the higher your income, probably you will have a higher limit. Now, normally, you cannot actually go above this limit, this credit line. So returning to our example, if we had this 10,000 credit limit and you reached those 10,000, you wouldn't be able to keep using your credit card. Until, again, like I already mentioned, because this is a revolving line of credit, you can simply pay some of the debt that you already own to free up some of that credit line. Now, I say normally you wouldn't be able to go above this limit because sometimes banks actually do let you to spend above this limit in return of a fee. So that is why it is very important to keep this limit in mind. Nowadays, it has become very easy to check just on the bank's mobile application that is updated almost instantaneously after every single purchase, so that you know that next time when you're about to purchase something, you can double check that you have the necessary line of credit available. Otherwise, if you cross that limit, you may incur in some fees. Now, there is a second important thing that you have to keep in mind about this line of credit. And it is that usually the higher your line of credit, the higher your minimum monthly payment would have to be. Because these minimum payments are usually calculated with some more variables involved, but based on the entire line of credit that you have available. So let's say that they would be 10% of your line of credit. So if your credit line is $10,000 and you decide to increase that to $20,000, your minimum payment could go up to $2,000 as well. This is just an example, but just to give you an idea of how this may work. Now, in reality, you would never actually want to pay just the minimum payment. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but just keep in mind that that is something that the line of credit could also impact when it comes to using your credit card. Now, in exchange to using this credit card, this revolving line of credit, sometimes banks would ask for an annual fee in return. And this fee you would have to pay no matter how you use your credit card. Even if you just get your credit card and store it on a drawer and forget about it, never use it during the year, it doesn't matter. The annual fee is going to be charged to your credit card. And of course, like you would with any other purchase, you would have to pay that on time if you don't want to start owing more interest to the bank. Now, certainly you can find credit cards that do not charge any kind of annual fee, but most likely the higher the annual fee, the lower the interest rate that the credit card would ask from you, the higher the credit limit, and the better the benefits you could get from your credit card. So it is always a good idea to balance things out, to keep in mind how much you're going to be paying on annual fees and how many benefits you're actually getting from your credit card, to find the sweet spot where you're actually getting more benefits than the amount of annual fee that you're currently paying. Now, be very mindful of those credit cards that claim to have no annual fee, but have minimum spending limits every month. So some credit cards may say that they don't charge any annual fee, but they would charge a $10, a $15 fee every month if you don't spend at least $100 on your credit card. And if during a particular month you don't spend those $100, you may start to incur those fees. Now, this is terrible practice, and in my opinion, is just a way of actually charging for an annual fee at the same time that banks get away with calling their credit cards free of annual fees. But it's just another way banks may be charging you for these annual fees. So just whenever you ask for a credit card with any financial institution, don't just ask about the annual fee, but also if there are any minimum spending requirements that you may have to consider. Now that we have these basics covered, it is time to talk about how is it that you would actually pay your credit card correctly so that you don't owe interest to the bank ever. To understand how to pay this, you have to keep two dates very much in mind. The first is the statement period. This statement period is a month that is going to be grouped together so that you know how much you would have to pay for that month. But it is not necessarily a calendar month. So say January or February. The statement period for your credit card can start at any day in the calendar. Let's say that it may start on the 12th of every month. Your statement period then would start on the 12th of, say, March and would end on the 11th of April in this case. Every single purchase that you made during that period, during the statement period, during that month, would be grouped together, and you would have to pay it starting on the next period and up until the due date, normally about 20 days, 15 days after the start of the next statement period. So back to our example, if we're talking about the statement period between the 12th of March and the 11th of April, you would usually have between the 12th of April and maybe the 27th of April, maybe even the 2nd of May to actually pay your credit card. Now, this due date, you would find it on your credit card statement, so you can have absolute certainty of this payment window. But this payment window is very important. You do not want to pay your credit card outside of that payment window. Now, in my case, just to forget about dates and just to don't have the pressure of the payment window coming to an end, I just pay every single month on the start of the new statement period. So in my example, around the 12th or 13th of every month. So I don't even have to worry about how many days left I have to pay. Now, regarding the amount that you have to pay, in these statements, you're going to find a minimum payment. Do not pay only the minimum. This minimum payment is usually very, very small compared to the entire amount of purchase that you made during the statement period. And it is only the minimum requirement for the bank to not claim that you already defaulted on your debt and go ahead and tell the credit bureaus that you are already behind in your payments. As long as you keep paying the minimum, the credit bureaus think that you are okay, but your finances are going to be suffering if you're only paying the minimum. In 1 minute, we're going to do the math of how much interest you would start to need to pay every month if you don't pay the entire amount that you owe. Just forget about minimum payments and just pay the entire amount. I always say that you should use your credit card the same as you would use a debit card, just with money that you already know that you already have. Which brings me to the closing balance. This is the amount of money that you should pay. This is the entire amount of money that you have spent and the money that you would have to pay so you don't generate a single cent in interest. Certainly, you probably won't be able to get rid of some fees like the annual fee, maybe some fees for taking cash out of an ATM from your credit card, or maybe even fees for printing your statement if those are still happening in 2024. But you can certainly get rid of paying interest to the bank. Those fees, maybe you can negotiate with the bank to try and bring them down, but the most important thing that you have to make sure of is that you never pay interest. That way, you're getting all of the benefits from having a credit card, which we're gonna touch a little bit on in just a minute, in exchange of just the fees, the annual fee maybe, no interest at all. And this is very important because banks usually offer all kinds of benefits precisely because they know that a lot of people are going to end up paying a lot of interest. So the business is good for the banks. They make people pay a lot of interest in exchange for small benefits, but if you're never paying interest, those benefits are entirely free to you because other people who haven't seen this video are paying interest on their credit cards. Now, this all brings me to the math of how is it that you would calculate how much interest you would generate if you don't fully pay your credit cards on time. So I have created this spreadsheet that you're gonna be able to find in the link in the description. It is my financial spreadsheets store, and you're going to find this March 2024 example that you can of course always duplicate so you can start for any month in the future. But basically what you would do is write the start of your statement period. Say that it is 11th of March. It calculates how many days this statement period is going to have. You write down the interest rate on your credit card and if you have any balance from the last periods. Let's say that we don't have any balance, that we're starting from scratch. But what you would have to do once you get your credit card statement is to write the charges for every month and any payments that you may have done to your credit card during the month. At the end of the month, you will be able to calculate the average daily balance. It is based on that average that the interest is calculated, not the final balance, in this example, not the $4,941, but the average balance of the whole month, in this case from the 31 days for this statement period. And based on that average, and of course based on your interest rate, the interest is calculated. So in this case, if you don't pay the full amount, that is the entire $4,941 that you owe, you would incur in $52.44 of interest. And of course, if you don't pay in the next month, you would incur more and more and more interest every single month. Now, it is important to understand that the interest is generated on the average, not the amount you owe. Say, for example, that you have to pay these $4,941, but you only pay $3,000. It is a common misconception to think that you would only have to pay interest on the remaining $1,949. No, you would have to pay interest on the average of the entire month. So let's say, and by the way, notice that in this example, I do have a payment on the 8th of April. Let's say that I didn't make this payment. So in reality, I own $5,941, but on the last day, I make a $4,000 payment. That certainly reduces the average balance, but I will still owe a little bit of interest. That is why if you know at some point during the statement period that you won't be able to pay your credit card in full, that you pay as much as you can as soon as possible. Notice that in this example, this $4,000 payment in the last day still generates $52.44 in interest. But If let's say you were able to make that payment around the 24th of March, so I will write $4,000 in here, that reduces the balance very early in the statement period, which means that the average balance is much less. I didn't change the charges, the amount of payments that you made with your credit card. You spent the exact same amount of money, but your balance was different. Your average balance is much less, and so the interest is only $5 compared to the $55 that it was before. As you can see, this balance, this average balance is very important. So if at any point you feel like you won't be able to pay your credit card in full, just pay as much as possible, as soon as possible. Of course, the very best thing to do is simply to always make sure that you'll be able to pay your credit card in full, to again, use it like you would use cash or a debit card, just with money that you already know that you already have. But if worst comes to worst, this is the way to go. Now, if you use your credit cards correctly, if you don't generate interest at all because you always pay the full balance before the due date, you could be obtaining a lot of benefits pretty much for free, or in exchange of those annual fees perhaps. And those benefits are actual real benefits. I'm not talking about the small benefit of not having to carry cash around or things like that, but actually good financial benefits that come from using these credit cards. For example, you may have price protection, so that if you buy something and you find it cheaper the next few days, from your credit card company, be that Visa or MasterCard, you may get the difference back. American Express doesn't usually do that, but you can check with them. You may also have protection against theft. So if you just purchase something from the store and someone steals that from you, that may be protected under your credit card, just because you paid that with your credit card. Good luck getting your money back if you paid with cash. And of course, there are some benefits that are less about insurance and more about luxury or comfort, like maybe getting some cashback, like maybe getting some benefits while traveling, being able to access some VIP lounges at the airports, or getting some discounts on certain airlines, certain hotels, things like that. So certainly when it comes to picking the correct credit card, you have to weigh all of these benefits against the fees that you would be paying. Again, preferably you would never pay a single cent in interest, so that is a moot point, it doesn't matter, but you have to weigh how much benefits you're going to be getting, be that the insurances that you may have protecting your purchases, and the cashback and the hotel benefits, travel benefits, whatever, against your annual fee. And if you find a credit card that would actually give you more benefits than you would be paying an annual fee, and of course you make sure that you never pay a single cent in interest, congratulations, because you're getting things for free from the bank. Of course, the bank may still actually be making money off of the people who are paying interest, but hey, share this video with them if they are your friends and you want them to not be paying interest to the bank. Anyway, there you have it. This is how you would use a credit card correctly. This is everything that you need to know about your credit card so that you know to never pay interest to the bank, because banks are evil. May as well get a little bit of them based on what you learned in this video. So anyway, there you have it. I'm gonna leave this spreadsheet down below so you can purchase it if that is something that you're interested in, and catch you guys on the next one.